Welcome to Buckets. This is Action Network's WNBA betting podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marino. Excited to be back here with Jay Money and Jim Turvey. This is our Game 4 preview. The Liberty managed a Game 3 win, putting them one win away from a title. Both of you guys are grinning, smiling ear to ear. And I think that's because, I think both of you have some positions on the Liberty to win this series, number one, but also how freaking good have these finals been? Every game has been so good. I mean, maybe a little frustrating at times, and we'll get into that. But I want to just start real quick. Reactions. Let's get a couple reactions to what we witnessed in the last game. Jay, you start.
Yeah, Sabrina didn't show up. She seemed like she was playing for the other team for 3.5 quarters, and then luckily showed up with two of the biggest shots of the game there as well. So I was looking for her high and low. I mean, she only had like 4 shots going to the third quarter. I was wondering like what's going on here? Do you want to win the game? I was thinking that she was supposed to be the MVP. I know that they have Breonna Stewart. I know Jonquel Jones. They have the major size advantage, but I just thought this was the Sabrina coming out party, and she just really hadn't showed it. But even with Stewart going for 30, Sabrina had the biggest shots. I mean, she almost made this shot from half court, man. It's just absolutely crazy shot there, shooting that with confidence, and you just kind of hope for the Lynx. If you're a Lynx backer, you hope that doesn't just absolutely demoralize them, because obviously that was a game that they could have won. They were up 10. Late in the game, and then you see the Liberty go on a 11-2 run, you know what I'm saying, just really break the game open. So obviously I'm really glad that the Liberty won that game, but it just kind of trips me out, the fact that they haven't been using their matchup advantages, and they kind of figured out, we have the size advantage. Let's try to get the ball into the, like, come on, let's try to hunt these switches. Like, if you just did this from the beginning, you probably could have swept this series. But Lynx are a great team. I just think that they're a little in over their head and don't really have as much size as they need versus the Liberty.
Jim, taking stock overall of where we sit in this series, what do you think?
I mean, I think you nailed it. I mean, this has been such an incredible series. And I wanted to zoom out a little bit, away from betting and just kind of a little W history here. Watching it last night, my first reaction was, is that like maybe the best shot we've seen in W history? Now, Teresa Weatherspoon, that's the shot that always stands out. I think that for now, that does have to stand atop the rankings. But kind of kicking around ideas with folks today, I think I'm going to get into it. I did make a little list of 5 that I'll rattle off in a second. But one thing that stood out is, like, one person I ran it by, friend of the pod, Calvin Wetzel, was like, is it even the best shot this series? The Courtney Williams 4-point play with 5 seconds left in the game could be up there. Fee had a game winner in overtime. I mean, this series is just spoiling us right now. It really has been. Maybe it's not the Aces and Liberty would have been the rematch. Caitlin making a run would have been the thing for casuals. But like this, if you are really a basketball fan, it is really hard to top what we have seen in these first 3 games. It has been so fun. The crowds have been electric. I know we kind of want Liberty in 4. That's like a bet that was talked about, and then we're all on our Liberty positions. But give me 55 games of this, man. I just want to watch this all fall long, all winter long. I want it to never stop. So should I go into my top 5 shots, or do we want to talk more about the game specifically first?
So I love that you did this, because I found myself wondering about the history a little bit. I think we save that. Let's tease that for the end of the show as a little treat if you stick around with us, because hell, who doesn't want to hang out with us a little longer and find out some W trivia? But I do want to get some of our betting thoughts out there for the loyal listeners who are, busy and going about their Friday morning. So with that, let me get a best bet from each of you. Jay?
Give me the Lynx, Minnesota Lynx, first quarter money line, +110.
And Jim?
I'm going kind of boring, just player prop here. Benijah Laney over 3.5 rebounds at plus money.
Look, I don't hate it because at this stage in the game, I think sometimes we have a tendency to like maybe overthink a little bit, maybe bet some things that we shouldn't. And like, I'm okay with keeping it simple here, enjoying this epic series. And we'll get into both of those bets a little bit more. But first, I do want to just lay out, some of the things, some of the key, I think, stats and whatnot from the last game, and a little bit of the game script. Like, definitely, Jay, you laid it out. Going into this series, we talked about the prior series playing Vegas, right? The one game that Sabrina had a dud, right? She had 4 points. And how did she describe the Vegas defense after that game? She called it, quote, Minnesota-esque. And I think this can be a little bit of a weak spot with the Liberty, in that if you cut off the head of the snake, as Becky Hammon called it, it's going to be a long night for the New York Liberty. I think she is so integral to what they do. And when she is stifled and disoriented, Liberty just have a real hard time, getting things going. And it was like pulling teeth that first half for them. I mean, the fact that they got it, I believe, under 10 by halftime, I was like, wow, because we were watching like some ugly Liberty basketball. Now, Breanna Stewart deserves a lot of credit. She looked last night like she was going for her third finals MVP. More importantly, her third championship. Like, have you guys ever seen, I have never seen a yelling, cursing Stewie, like, we are not fucking losing this game, in the huddle. I was like, oh my God. I was like, so like fired up. And she made sure that they didn't look. We talked about Sabrina obviously had the game winner and the clutch baskets to, close the deal. But without Stewie scoring 22 in the second half, like, that doesn't happen. I do wonder, Jay, about your point. Like, I don't know if you said this off air or on air, but like, did Sabrina and the Liberty like kill their soul? Did they just mentally destroy the Lynx? Or do they have one more punch left in them? So that being said, what do you make of the Lynx coming out here in the first quarter in a do or die game 4?
Well, I just want to say one thing about Breanna Stewart. They know why they came here. They know why. She knows why she came here. She knows why Junquel Jones came here. You're here now. Why are you guys out there BSing around, playing around like you don't know how to play basketball? Now, I get it. The Lynx are a much stronger-minded, tougher type of team, right? They play better defense, whereas the Liberty just seem like a little bit softer team. That's why they're sometimes going out there getting punked. But I do trust the Lynx. I may not trust them to win the full game. It wouldn't surprise me for them to push it to 5, to be honest with you. But we know Alana Smith probably won't be 100%. But, I mean, for them to come out in the first quarter, it's an absolute desperation spot. It's really all on the Liberty, in my opinion. Do the Liberty have that killer instinct? We saw them when they started hunting the switches with Jones and Stewart there. Obviously, like, that's their matchup there. So the Lynx, what they have to do is get into practice, watch the film, say, okay, this is what they start doing. How are we going to counter this? At least to start the game, I feel like the Lynx will come out with desperate. Like, this is an absolute desperation spot here. This is a play that I'd make really anytime. And I really do really well with these plays as well. First quarter with the team that's facing elimination, especially at the house, you're going to get their full effort in that particular game. I usually think the reason why I'm staying away from the Lynx in the full game, the better team usually wins. Like the Liberty, like yesterday, they were down 10 in the first quarter, down 9 in the first half, and they just really found a way to come back, keep chugging along. That's what you can do throughout the full 40 minutes. But for this first 10 minutes of the game, I expect the Lynx to come out with their backs against the wall, doing whatever they have to try their best to make the adjustments and push this to a game 5. So I may not trust them in the full game or the first half, but for the first 2 minutes, give me plus money on them. I mean, you could take the plus a half if you want, but I'll take the Lynx here plus 110 the first quarter money line, coming out with absolute desperation.
So one thing we can definitely credit the Lynx for is they did exactly that in game 3. They flipped the script, right? So New York has been an extremely dominant first quarter team really all season, and in games 1 and 2 they were as well. Andrew O'Connor Watts pointed this out in our WNBA Action Slack channel. Like, when you think about how this series has progressed, when it comes to first quarter, like, it really has worked with the narrative. So, game 1, New York gets, what would you call it? Dumbfounded, right? They let one get away, heartbreak. So they once again have a very strong, first quarter in the next game. And then what we saw in game 3, Minnesota looking to bounce back. They're the desperate team in that scenario. And they managed to, get a big lead on the Liberty in the first quarter. caused the Liberty to actually take a timeout. They were leading 14-5 like midway through the first. So now here again, it's just like another spot, I think, where Minnesota realizes, okay, not only did we let one get away, but this is our last chance. So we better come out hot. So, Jim, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing to keep an eye on is going to be Alana Smith. So we talked about the Lynx having the strong first half, bad second half. You don't want to overweigh certain like individual game plus minus, but in that game, Alana Smith in game 3 is plus 20. Maisha Hines-Allen was minus 19. So like you can't distill everything down to that, but the Lynx do play so much better on both ends with Alana Smith out there. If we use PvP stats, got to get the tattoo incoming on my forehead here. They're 4 points worse on defense with Alana Smith off the court, and they're 5 points worse on offense. So both sides of the ball struggle worse with Alana Smith off the court. She's been nicked up all series. The back thing really seemed to be throwing her yesterday. She had to go to the locker room. She couldn't finish the game. If she's not at 100%, or if she goes and gives it a shot, maybe to Jay's point, actually in this first quarter, that's probably, the healthiest she's going to be is that you get the adrenaline, you get the crowd, like 10 minutes worth. You're like, all right, I can do this. Down the stretch, I think maybe it fits that narrative a little bit of like, man, my back's tightening up, or like, you take a couple of those hard screens, it dislodges something a little bit. So I do think if you want to be on the Lynx, it's better to do it early for sure. I lean towards the Liberty. The market seems to be disagreeing. It opened up 3.5. The Lynx have taken a little bit of money because it's now either 2.5 or 3 out there. I would take the Liberty minus 2.5, especially with this Alana Smith, potential for being out. But honestly, everything is so sharp right now. I only gave out, the singular player prop. I think sides are sharp right now. I think totals are sharp right now. I think player props are pretty sharp right now. I was looking for a lot of stuff. Laney rebounds was the only one I really quite like. There's a few that if they get to certain numbers, if the player prop moves, I'll be interested. But I mean, this is but the later in a series, later in the season, everything's just really sharp right now. I think, get 1 or 2 bets you like, and then just like sit on the couch with a bunch of popcorn and a beer maybe, and just enjoy this basketball right now.
Right. Like I said at the top of the show, I'm with you there, and I'm glad you brought up the full game spread, obviously. So when you look back at game 3, it was very similar, right? I was seeing a couple of 3s, a couple 2.5s. We gave out Libs minus 2.5 on the last episode, which actually did end up cashing. Very nice. It closed though Minnesota minus 3.5. I mean, some freaking psychos like Michael Fiddle also bet like Lynx plus 4, and
the Fiddle middle yesterday was pretty elite.
Yeah, actually, all told, I'll brag a little bit. Our last pod cleaned up. We like swept everything. So anyway, that's where we stand there. And just a note to the total was 160.5. That went under. Now we're seeing a little bit of a lower total in this one, 158.5, which, excuse me, I guess you could kind of expect, especially in a potential closeout game. So that's that. Alana Smith, one more point about that. I don't think that Maisha Hines-Allen is going to play that bad again. Not that she was like, it's not like she stood out as like horrible, but you did make a good point, Jim, about like, yeah, when Alana Smith was out of the game, it was really noticeable. Yeah. I think now with a couple of days to understand that Alana Smith may not be 100%, may not be able to play as many minutes. Like I think Cheryl and company will prepare for that. I think Maisha Hines-Allen is going to be ready for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you get a little bit better of a plus minus situation there. But at the same time, I do think it's important to stress like how good Alana Smith has been at all the little things for the Lynx to like keep it all together. The other thing too, and this is another thing we discussed on last episode, is first of all, can New York win 3 in a row? I think they're good enough too, but at the same time, we're all like, wouldn't be surprised if this goes 5. After game 1, I actually bet it to go 5 at like plus 120, like just for the hell of it. Dano had said he feels like Minnesota's going to flex a little bit at some point. Like, does Nafisa Collier have one final push as, one of the best players she struggled from the floor in game 3. Like she got to, I think it was 22 points. I remember because I bet her points over. I was very happy about that. But like barely. I mean, she needed those 2 free throws at the end to do that. And I think I want to say she was 9 of 22 from the floor overall. At the beginning of this series, she was getting the better of the Stewie Fee matchup. And I feel like as the series has gone on, Stewie has taken the lead, right? She has been better defensively and she's been better offensively. So, but at the same time, I've been saying all postseason, Fee is relentless. And like, I think she's going to go down swinging. The hardest thing for the Lynx, can you get that production again from Kayla McBride? Can you actually get Bridget Carleton to score in double digits? Because those were all things we were looking for that they did, and they still couldn't get the win. And one more point, I'll say this too, McBride, it's unfortunate that she was guarding Sab on that last 3, because if you look at the analytics, when she has been guarding Sabrina, like she is a big reason why Sabrina was pretty quiet, like up until that point. She actually played great defense. I feel so bad. And our friend Alexa Philippou from ESPN asked her after the game about that sequence, and she literally was just like, great player, great shot. Like, I guarded her for 40 minutes. Like, obviously she wasn't happy, but it happens.
The Paul George D. Lillard, like that was actually good defense.
Yes.
It sounds demoralizing.
Yeah.
Well, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. Okay. So wanted to get some of those points out there, but why don't we go into your prop, Jim? Let's talk about Laney.
Yeah, definitely. I want to circle it with a couple other player props I'm eyeing as well. You talked about the pace, the total going down. What I think is interesting about this is the pace has actually gone up in all 3 games. So the game 1 was the slowest, game 2 was faster, game 3 was even faster. I don't think that's a coincidence either. I think both of these offenses realize that they are best when they're getting in. Like the only time the Liberty have looked awful offensively is when they just like are just crawling and there's no movement. Not like if they're in transition and they're moving and it's quick, I think it's actually better for both offenses. So the only problem is here is both defenses have looked outstanding. So like I'd be a little scared playing an over, but I would lean towards an over in general. Okay. There's a few props though that I am intrigued by. I mentioned Benijah Laney Hamilton rebounds as my favorite. You can get plus money on over 3.5. It looks like she, at the start of the series, she really was looking pretty hampered. The last 2 games, she didn't score a lot last night, but her movement just looked a lot better. She's getting the full minutes load now. If she's getting a full minutes load, the 3.5 is just too low of a number. She's cleared this 2 out of 3 and averages over this in general when she's getting her full minute load. I also think Leonie Fibish to get 5 rebounds is interesting. She came 1 short of this last night, but she got it the other 2 games. And if I'm leaning on this thought that pace is going to be up, but we're getting great defense, rebound overs as a prop is an interesting angle to look at here. There's 2 props that if they get high enough, I might zag and go under, even though in recent games they have kind of looked interesting. Bridget Carleton threes is at 1.5. If it gets up to 2.5, I might take a look at that. She didn't even take a 3 in the second half when it was the Maisha Hines-Allen half, basically. I think Alana Smith opens up a lot more space for her. So if we're getting more MHA and we're getting a 2.5 number for Carleton, even though she's at home, I might look at that under. And then Courtney Williams' assists is another one. When Alana Smith is off the court, her assists go down a fair amount because that's a pretty common combo there. So if we get 6.5, Courtney Williams has been doing really well actually in terms of assists this series. So I don't want to play under 5.5. That's a pretty low number. But if we somehow get up to that 6.5, if other people bet it up based on, she's had 2 games of 8 assists in this series, if that gets bet up, I might look to go under on that. But like I said, everything is relatively sharp right now. So I'll stick with Benijah Laney Hamilton over 3.5 rebounds is my favorite bet.
I like that.
Yeah, Jay, any other thoughts on anything that we've been throwing out there into the ether?
Yeah, I like Delaney. I mean, she's out there for defense and rebounds. She's a hustler. She's like a Lynx type of player. Yeah. It's kind of like the Lynx have like 4 or 5 Laney Hamiltons out there. But I just love the way she plays. She doesn't care about scoring. She's just one of those glue type of players. So I love the way she plays. It's a good way of attacking that market as well. Like you say, 3.5. She had 5 last game. I don't see how she doesn't grab 4 boards. They really need it. And just one thing I wanted to say was that the bench has really been outplaying. Like the bench is the weak point for the Lynx, in my opinion. Like you said, you see Hines Allen go for a minus 19, but I mean, I know that the Liberty only scored 9 points, but their bench players are actually being productive. You see Kayla Thornton out there plus 12, no plus minus there. You see what I'm saying? So that means a lot there without scoring a single point. So those type of things, those little bit intangibles really mean a lot. It just seems like when the Lynx have to put a bench player in, that's when they start to get smashed. -8, -9, -19, they're 3 bench players. So it's almost like all 5 starters. Well, I mean, I don't know if Alana Smith can play 40 minutes. I don't know if they have. You see, Fee play 40 minutes, but they may not have to. They may not be able to go to a bench player. But I don't think we see a bench player in the first quarter. So give me the Lynx in the first quarter.
Yeah. That's another point about Smith too, is like, I think in the moment she was so frustrated and she was like so out of it that I think like emotionally she might be a little more like locked in again for this do or die game. But I'm glad you brought up the Liberty bench, because I thought that even though their numbers aren't going to jump off the page, when Sabali came in, when Vandersloot came in, when Thornton came in, they gave really, really good minutes and really, really good energy, and like definitely helped the Liberty stay afloat when like Sabrina was not effective and they just looked super stagnant offensively.
That was a really big pivot moment. That was like, we talked about how frustrating it can be from, if you're a Liberty fan or a Liberty bettor, watching this team. Sometimes you're like, this effort is just not every 50-50 ball is going to Lynx. They just look lethargic at times. They bring out like the 80-year-old man in me. Like, I don't usually like talking like, this is not my capping style. I'm just like, they don't look like they care right now. And then Sloot gets out there and KT gets out there, and Naira had an awesome game. I thought she really popped off the bench. They got out there and they brought the energy, and like you said, they stabilized them at a pretty pivotal point where it could have gone south really quick and become a blowout. They stabilized it, and then Stewie in the fourth quarter, she had 12 straight of the Liberty points, I think, at one point, to float them to Sabrina with those late buckets. So I mean, I think if you're a Stewie Finals MVP voter, Joe Delara, shout out. I think that's looking pretty good right now.
And I have to give Joe Delara credit, because after, I don't know, game 1 or 2, I threw out in the group chat like, how are we feeling about Finals MVP? And Joe Delara has stuck to his gun. He was like, Stewie series. He's been saying it.
Which is amazing, because she's drawn the fee matchup on both sides. Like, that's it.
Right. And also, I was a little hesitant because I was like, after what happened in game 1, like, is she able to sort of flip the narrative? Yeah. But neither here nor there. We'll see how this one plays out. But I think the key to what you said, Jim, was pace. And that's what Sabrina, what you lose if she's not involved, right? Yeah. It's like JJ and like, oh my God, the amount of times where I felt like there was too much dribbling and nobody's moving. I'm literally like, what is going on? This is bad. But I do want to say this, because I think last year in the finals, Jim, we gave Becky Hammon her flowers with how tactical I thought she was as a coach and what a great job she did. Sandy Brondello, so far so good, Sandy. I'm just saying, I think she's done a masterful job so far. I think she's pulled the right strings. Cheryl Reeve called Sandy Brondello's move of Leonie Febish to the starting lineup in the postseason as perhaps like one of the best WNBA playoff moves ever. And I think right away you saw like that starting 5 lineup has been by far the most effective of any starting 5. I mean, like a historically good lineup right there. And then I'll just give an example from game 3. For her to look at Sabrina in the huddle and say, this is your shot, and give her the ball in that moment, knowing that Sabrina had not shot pretty well like all game, but still understanding that that is her shot to take. Man, that took some gall. Like, because I don't know exactly what I was expecting in that possession, but I don't think I was expecting, Sabrina to create
from the logo.
What?
From the logo.
Yeah. And like, here's what I love about that shot. And this is going to be a perfect segue to get into, I want to hear Jim's list. So that shot was not miraculous. It was not a heave. It was a skilled, practiced shot. Like, that is something that the off the dribble to shake McBride, to step over and to hit that, like that was, oh my God, like that was textbook, but like that was advanced, man. Like that was like advanced part of the textbook. So I do have to give Sabrina credit with that. And I'll just add my little hot take because I'm the host of the show. So floor is mine. So my immediate thought was when Ruocco said the biggest shot in New York Liberty history, to me, that is still to be determined. If the New York Liberty win this championship, then absolutely, that is the biggest shot in Liberty history. As it stands, that's tied for me with Teaspoon's The Shot in the 1999 finals. That was a shot that kept the Liberty alive, extended the series, but we know they didn't go on to win. They lose to the Houston Comets. And the other thing about that shot, and it's incredible when you watch it back, she didn't even cross half court. That was truly a heave. And I'm not trying to take away from her skill, but I interviewed Teaspoon about that moment, and she told me that after that happened, she felt that, quote, angels do exist. Like that's how she thought of that shot. To me, like I said, I think that's amazing, and it's an epic call. Mike Breen is on our open of our podcast saying she put it in, and that, you hear that with the buckets music. Dun, 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 dun. So it's all well and good, but yeah. So right now, like I said, those are tied for me. But if Liberty finish the job, Sabrina moves up. But I need to know the other shots in W history. Educate me, Jim.
So you framed this so well, because this is the exact conversation I was having all day today. I was like, does the heave make it more impressive, or does it actually, like, the skill of Sabrina's shot is more impressive? But where I landed is, this is my 5. I would go from 5 to 4. Okay. So my 5th is a different heave. It's the Erica Hamby's heave to put the Aces into the 2019 semifinals. Now, this was not in the finals. And it actually, ironically, was kind of a goofy shot because it came with more time on the clock than a buzzer beater. She thought she had to shoot it. The humor of that, the unintentional humor of her shooting a half-court shot with 7 seconds left, I just love it. I loved that Aces team in that moment. I thought they were really fun. They're kind of the beginning of their dynasty. That's one of my favorite shots. The Hamby heave, it's got the alliteration. So that's going to be my number 5. Okay. For now, I agree with you. I think that the impact of this Sabrina shot will be seen in time. I put Sabrina's shot number 4. I think that it is. I want the actual buzzer to hit. That's part of it. Like if it had been truly at 0-0, I think that's also part of to me, because when it's the full buzzer beater, you just get everyone rushes on the court. The energy is insane. It's on the road too, which is cold as hell, but also is you don't get the crowd going nuts. You don't get that. So that's my number 4 for now. But I agree that it could move up if the Liberty take this title. Number 3 for me is the only one on this list that actively won a championship. It was Game 5, 2016 finals, Neko Ogwumike. It's not a deep shot. It's not a half-court shot. It's not a three-pointer even, but that falling away putback shot to win a finals, it has to be in the top 5. Number 2, I went with Maya Moore. It's the most classic. It's the mid-range game winner, just kind of lose your defender, pull up. It's everything you think of in a basketball shot. Game 3 of the 2015 finals, and it's Maya Moore. Maya Moore has to be on this list. Probably.
And that wasn't a closeout, right?
No, that was not a close. It was similar to this. Okay. It kept the series going. And then my number 1 was Teaspoon. It's called The Shot. I mean, it was in the inaugural season. It drew so much attention. It is history personified. It will probably be my number 1 forever. I know it didn't win a championship, but that moment, and just Teaspoon is, one of my favorite players of all time. So I have that number 1, but I totally see the case for Sabrina's the skill and just I don't know. I was reading our friend Owen Pence's piece. He was talking about how in the moment, as she's doing the crossover and pull up, he's hearing the Father Take My Hands, and you get the remix every single time, and now when you see it live, you start to hear it because you're seeing this moment and you're picturing it, how it's going to play out on Twitter. So many good options there, but that was the list that I came up with when I dug into the history of the league today.
Like I said, like I said, Teaspoon is a legend. She's one of the best. I think that was an iconic moment for the WNBA for sure. And that will never be forgotten. I like that you had one that won the series. I think there's a couple others. Like I saw, like Diana's had some game winners. Like there's been a few, but I need to dig deeper on again like the stakes surrounding. But that was a fun little aside. So thank you for doing that research. And yeah, I think that was one of the best. I mean, that was one of the best shots you will ever see. And man, that was just wow. What a moment. What a moment. But look, the job's not done. So yeah, like I said before, just curious how much fight these Lynx have left in them, and will we get a game 5 in Brooklyn? Because as you know, winner take all game, anything can happen. This series has been wild. We talked about going into the last game how New York had led for like 78 minutes. Minnesota and New York were tied for like 3 minutes. Minnesota had led for 3 minutes in overtime. Again, flipping the script, right? Minnesota led pretty much the entire game of the last game, and then New York ended up winning. So, Jay, I haven't heard your voice in a minute, so I want to give you the last word here.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny that the Liberty had a 4-point lead with 55 seconds left, and they do their best to try to screw the game away, man. I never understand. Like, why does Sabrina have to even hit that game-winning shot? You're up by 4, play defense, don't foul, or go and get a bucket. Like, what's been working? It just seems like they try their best to choke, man. So I can't wait to watch the game this Friday night game. And one last thing as well, this is the only game of this series where there's only one day in between. Comes at the worst time for Alana Smith as well.
Wow. I didn't think about that.
It's a really good point.
Yikes. Yikes. Okay. Well, look, I'm spent, you guys. I've been freaking dreaming about this shit. I've been talking about it all day long. I'm gonna say goodbye. Thanks everyone for listening to Buckets. Thank you, Jay Money and Jim Turvey, for your insight. Good luck. We'll talk to y'all soon, whether it's a season in review pod or a game 5 preview. Stay tuned, follow the pod so you don't miss an episode, and let's get buckets.